morning. Welcome to the Community Economic Development Authority, and we will get started with a call to order. And we'll have Joyce do the roll call. Here.
Cleary? Here. Garcia Sierra?
Here.
Hamilton?
Here.
Hardy? Here. Maldonado?
Here.
Potts?
Here.
Udell? We have a quorum.
Thank you, and we will move over to approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
All right, everyone in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right. Move forward. The agenda number 4, public appearances, non-agenda items. But we have agenda items, so should we go forward, right? Are we all here for agenda items? Tree ordinances are here. And Linda Brewer, or the number on the screen, I just want to confirm, is it a non-agenda item? Okay, and the number on the screen, does anyone know?
I believe that's City Easter Day, also planning tree advisory.
Perfect, thank you so much. And then so we'll move on to item number 5, resolutions ordinances 2023-0-11, requiring tree preservation plans to be included with preliminary plans by creating section 24-4 of Fitchburg Code of Ordinances.
And I'll start out to provide some background here. In the packet, members, that you have is, first of all, the referral, and then an update with that referral as far as the action that the Plan Commission took at their meeting last week, and then some of the revisions that they had. That was the red line version on the second page of that referral, so you could see the changes that they made to it. Also in the packet is the memo from our city administrator, Chad Brecklin, as far as the process and how we got to where we are right now today. And just talks about some of the goals of the Tree Advisory Committee that were identified early on in the work that they have done to date, as far as working with staff and various committee input and the ordinance that they drafted. And then we had a staff work group that kind of looked at that ordinance and made some updates and modifications. And that group consisted of Anna Healy, our urban forester and naturalist, who's here with us today, Scott Endel, Director of Parks and Recreation and Urban Forestry, Deanna Schmidt, our City Planner and Zoning Administrator, myself, our City Attorney, Valerie Zisman, and then Chad Brecklin. And we kind of worked together, recognizing and trying to accomplish some of the goals that the Tree Advisory Committee identified as far as their aspirations for the tree preservation ordinance, and came out with the draft that was referred out and sent to various committees. And that kind of focused on the 3 items that included the DBH at 18 inches. And that was, again, our work group working together to come up with kind of what were some of those elements and parameters within the proposed tree advisory from that staff work group. Adding an individual with training and experience similar to a certified arborist for that person and professional to be able to conduct the survey. And then kind of the listing of the desirable trees, and those were identified as the oaks, the shagbark hickory, and the hackberry there. And there was explanation in that memo as far as kind of the thought process and the information, especially from Anna's expertise there, that kind of led us to kind of putting those parameters in our kind of proposed ordinance there. I know those are different from the ones that were originally in the tree advisory, and I think we'll hear from some members of the tree advisory this morning on their perspective. So just wanted to kind of give you a summary of what's in the packet there and was part of the ordinance. And then thanks for bearing with us with our technology issues yesterday. Just want to make sure that everybody got some of the information that we were sending out even late yesterday. We had a presentation that Linda Brewer, chair of the Tree Advisory, had shared, so I sent that to all the CETA members. We just wanted to make sure that everybody had received information that was sent from the public. We had Sue Fever also sent a letter, letter to the editor that she had shared from the Wisconsin State Journal, and also I think it's going to be in the Fitchburg Star coming up, so all the members should have that. And then we also received a letter from Chad Lawler, the executive director from the Madison Area Builders Association. So those are the items that everybody should have received in addition to the packet information that was shared. So any questions on the materials or the information? And again, in the packet is also the language that the Tree Advisory Committee had proposed and kind of their parameters, and I'm sure they'll be sharing that information with us today as well. So I think, Madam Chair, if we could have the public comment, and then once we have the public comment, then we can kind of go to the motion and the agenda item, and then have our members for discussion, and then kind of move forward with consideration and any amendments that might be part of the process or deliberations.
Sounds great. And then the first person to discuss would be Gabriella Gerhardt then.
And before Gabriella gets there, I just want to welcome the members of the Tree Advisory Committee. Thanks for coming out. We know we're an early morning meeting, so we appreciate you getting up early and joining us for the meeting.
Hi, I'm Gabriella Gerhardt. I am the alder representing District 2, and I'm on the Plan Commission. So you'll see the Plan Commission amendment, what the language looks like on the referral sheet in red. So I'm here to, let you know what the Plan Commission did. I also was on the Tree Commission for 2 years, 2020 and 2021, when I first was elected. And I'm not a tree expert, but I learned a lot when I was on there. And the tree ordinance was discussed all the way back in 2020 when I first started. So this process has been happening for a long time. So in terms of, the Tree Advisory Committee, they have been doing a lot of research and a lot of due diligence with the city staff throughout. And in terms of what the original proposal for this tree protection ordinance was versus what it is now, which I wouldn't call a tree protection ordinance, it is much, much more of a compromise. This doesn't require the preservation of these trees. All it is kind of identification of the trees on the preliminary plat, so that there is that consideration as part of the overall, planning stage, and doesn't require any sort of preservation in any sort of way, only literally the trees on the plat, which didn't exist before. So, from the Tree Advisory Committee perspective, or from my perspective, the trees aren't part of the process at that early stage. And so it's very easy to cut them down just because it's not even on the plat. These preliminary plats, they are only done a couple times a year. This is not retroactive for the properties that, already exist and are in development. But then also the point that in terms of bringing it down to 6 inches, which I know the Tree Advisory Committee will talk about, 6 inches is really when those trees are actual viable trees for sure. And some of these trees are, in the 60, 80-year-old range once they're that big. And one of the interesting things that I learned in tree advisory is that those middle-aged trees, the trees that are in the 60, 80, 40-year-old range, those are the ones that are really rare in a city. Those are the ones that get clear cut because they're on the smaller end. But those are the ones that actually live the longest. We save the 150-year-old oak, but that oak only has a few more decades to live, versus we cut down the 80-year-old tree that might have a full century left. So it's a real loss. Thank you. And so in terms of the Plan Commission, we brought the species back to the original list that was developed by the Tree Advisor. We wanted to trust the tree experts and their research that happened all along. And then we also brought the diameter back down to 6 inches, as recommended by the Tree Advisory Committee. And the main reason I think that spoke to us was the fact that it was just on the preliminary plat, which is only a couple times a year. The fact that we aren't mandating the saving of those trees only for the consideration and the plan, and then also the fact that trees at that size are worth consideration. And I think that they're less talked about, but they should be more well considered. I'm here for a little while. I have to head out to work soon, but if there are any questions about what the Plan Commission did, I'm going to be here. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Heads up, we are keeping each comment to 3 minutes, so I will give you a little warning if so. But thank you, Gabriella. And the next one we have is Craig.
All right, looks like I'm good on the mic here. I think Gabriella's and Michael's comments were just about spot on. What I would like to add is just, we spent.
Sir, sorry, could you just state your name, please?
Oh, so sorry.
Thank you.
Craig Rapp, and I'm a member of the Tree Advisory Committee. Silly, I forgot that part. I think the previous comments from Gabriella are spot on. I'll just emphasize we spent about 2.5 years talking with members of city staff, members of other city staffs, arborists, and professionals to try and develop the ordinance that we drafted originally. I think the city staff missed the mark a little bit when they did their amendments. The memo focuses on the fact that at 18 inches, it is a timber value tree. That doesn't really affect the tree preservation goals that we're trying to get at. Whether or not it has timber value, really it misses the mark. And the purpose, what we're trying to do is just get trees into the forefront of the process. So Plan Commission right now in the preliminary plat process does not see trees on the map. So the reason we really strongly believe we need a smaller tree surveyed and also more species is so that they have more information with which to plan. The final version that we put together was really a compromise version already. We had taken in a lot of the feedback, even had Chad reach out to developers for us to get their feedback, and ended up with what we thought was a very reasonable goal that will also satisfy the 2009 and 2019 Fitchburg Comprehensive Plan goals, as well as get us in the running to be a tree city of the world. We do not have any indication or belief that the adjustment that was made by city staff would still satisfy those goals, which is why we're coming today to ask you to consider what Plan Commission has approved, to vote on and discuss that. And thank you for your time. If you have any questions later, I'm more than happy to discuss.
Thank you so much, Craig. Appreciate it. And we have Sue coming up. Fiber. Sue Fiber. You don't want to speak? Thank you. Perfect. All right. So Sue Fiber has a comment of, I support the version of the tree preservation ordinance that was approved by the Plan Commission. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, Sue is also the one that sent the letter that I shared with CETA members as well.
Thank you so much. And we have Ann Sawyer, who wishes to register, and her comments are, I support the tree preservation ordinance as originally written by the tree ordinance, tree committee. Correct? Keep going. And we also have Brenda Hofer that wishes to register, and she has comments, I support the version of the tree preservation ordinance that was approved by the Plan Commission. And we have a couple people online. We have Linda Brewer, and I wanted to know, are you looking to speak or? You are.
I'm here to speak.
Hi.
There we go.
All right.
So if you want to go ahead and give your comments, you do have 3 minutes on the mic.
So my name is Linda Brewer, and I'm the chair of the Tree Advisory Committee. I'm part of the 3-member subcommittee that developed the tree ordinance proposal over the last 2.5 years. The members of that smaller committee were myself and Anna Healy and Craig Rapp. And then we have had the approval of the Tree Advisory Committee along the way. So support for the, I'm here to support the plan that was approved, or the proposal that was approved by the Plan Commission last week. When did we start this process? We met with city managers and we were advised as the following. 1, do not make it more difficult for developers to create affordable housing. 2, create incentives for developers to follow. 3, make the ordinance clear and straightforward. After our meeting with the city attorney, after several meetings with her, and especially at the one in July of last year, we revised our draft to really bare bones, to really meet the advice given to us by the city managers. 4, make the ordinance enforceable. 5, make an ordinance that creates no extra money commitment from the city budget. And what do we have with the proposal from the approved plan from the Plan Commission? One, there should be little extra time or cost to developers. Our estimates range from $800 to $1,500, which is a very small percentage. We didn't find anything over 2,000 in terms of estimates of cost for just surveying and plotting the trees. And we do have good access to certifiable arborists in our area. Two, incentives to developers is a good ordinance that supports sustainable tree infrastructure for all neighborhoods, both low-density housing and high-density housing. Costs for tree removal and new tree plantings are diminished with this plan. Three, the ordinance in a nutshell, and I think Gabriella and Craig have really defined that very well. It's really the only requirement by the ordinance that we've developed is for the property to be surveyed and to develop a preservation plan for the trees that have been identified in the conversations between the developer and the staff. The DBH trees of 6-inch would consider the trees 30 years old, 40 years old, 80 years old, which are of great significance to our canopy. 4, is it enforceable? Yes, just because it needs to be on the plot before it's approved by the Plan Commission. And 5, the city always has worked with developers. There's really no change in that, with the exception of the required input from the city forester on the very specific trees of the very specific DBH. So, and any questions, we'll be here to answer them. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Linda. I appreciate it. And it looks like we have one more phone call in. I believe that you said is Sue. Sue, if it is you, if you need to unmute, it's *6. Sue, if you are talking, we can't hear you. All right, we will move on to, no, Craig Rapp, you are, right, just confirming, okay. So we're gonna just give this a couple more seconds.
I don't see Chad Lawler on from the Madison Area Builders Association. I just handed out the letter that he had sent even to the tree advisory committee members that are in attendance here. So I'm not going to read the whole letter. That'll go into the official record. But the gist of their letter is MABA recommends and would support a middle ground proposal that includes species limited to those in the staff proposal. And then identification should be limited to mature trees that measure 12 inches in diameter at chest height. And then the tree preservation plan should not mandate preservation of all identified and mapped trees. However, developers and builders should be incentivized to maintain these identified trees whenever feasible. And then they just go on to say the Madison Area Builders Association urges you to support a middle ground proposal that both supports awareness of preservation opportunities for mature desirable tree species during development and building process and limits the onerous and costly nature of the original and more stringent revisions that have been proposed. And I handed out a hard copy of this, and if members want that electronically, just let me know too, and I can send it to you as a PDF as well. A motion and then.
We have one more person online. Craig is right there. Oh, he's here? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
There should be a motion first and then discussion.
So we will move on a motion for ordinance 2023-0-11. Any in favor say aye.
First, we just need somebody
Discussion.
to propose a motion.
Sorry. Motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve, although I do have one, I guess, question of clarification is which version is before us? Is it the version that was referred to CETA, or is this the amended version from Plan Commission?
It should be the original version of it. You can decide.
Madam Chair, I'd like to actually propose the amendment as confirmed by Plan Commission.
First, we have to see if there's a second on Andy's motion.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second on the original. So we can take that for a vote first.
For discussion.
So please, Joyce, excuse me, can you please clarify again, are we voting on the 6, 12, or 18? The motion we're voting on now or talking about is?
It's the staff
Which is
version
18.
that was drafted at the 18.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, okay.
And then we've got a motion and a second. We can have discussion on that, and there can also be amendments as part of that process.
So I'd like to move for the amendment as proposed in Plan Commission that should be in the agenda packet.
Yeah, that's different.
Go ahead.
It'd be correct to offer it as an amendment to the original. My question is really just which one was before us. I'll move that version, but I think it's certainly, if someone wants to amend that motion, as Joe is doing, I think would certainly be in order.
So again, we've got the original kind of resolution that was the staff version. That's the motion and the second that we have, and we can have discussion on that now. And then that provides also an opportunity for CETA members to provide amendments to that and adjustments. Yeah. We need a second on that, and then we can go into discussion on that if members are inclined.
We have a second.
On Joe's?
The original motion, the motion was made by Potts and seconded by Garcia Sierra on the original.
But now we have an amendment to that motion to offer the Plan Commission amended version, and we're waiting on a second on that.
I'll second that for the purpose of discussion.
Yep. Okay.
So we'll open up to discussion if anyone has comments.
Madam Chairman, I've got a couple. So first of all, thank you for all you folks for showing up this morning and giving us some additional information around this. As I'm looking at this, I heard Linda say, and she's still on the phone, $800 to $1,500 per tree survey. Is that correct on the average for each development? I think she quoted $800 to $1,500. Is that the correct amount that's going to cost for an arborist to do a tree survey?
I can't guarantee you, oops.
Okay. I just quoted what I thought you heard you say, Lynn. I'm just asking a question. Is that right?
So it depends a little bit upon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to understand what we're going to be voting on.
In terms of the cost of a tree survey, it depends a little bit upon the size and the size of the area to be surveyed and what you're asking for. So the more attributes you ask for, the more costly it is. If you're just asking for DBH and species and condition or something like that, because we've done those surveys here in the city for our road projects, and you're looking at probably an hourly between $65 and $115 an hour, depending on who you have do it. It's pretty basic work. And it's fairly easy to find someone to do that because it's something that any certified arborist could do. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
No, I think that's very helpful. Thank you. Again, so it's a TBD, but you've got a basic premise you're working from. I'm looking back to one of our objectives, which is affordable housing, and Linda mentioned that too, as well as we don't want to ramp up things so wound so tight we can't do anything in the city anymore. And I think this is a very important thing to do. I support the canopy and all the goals of this. I think we're down to the cost in my mind, and then the 6, 12, and 18, which is what I think we're dealing with. The 12 inches was Chad's. When the internet started working last night, I think it was 12.
Yes, it was. That's what's in the model letter.
Plan Commission supported 6.
Yes.
Amended, and the original city things was 18. Am I
Correct.
getting all this?
Correct. Yeah.
And this was first brought up in 2009, right? in the comp plan in 2009. So I'm just trying to
Yes,
get all
some of the comp
pieces
plan goals, yes.
in my public university trained mind. So, okay, thank you very much. That was good. I just wanted some clarifications. Thank you.
And then one other, in the Plan Commission amended version there, they also expanded the species list
Yeah.
to what the Tree Advisory Committee had originally proposed in their ordinance. Do I have that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if I could show the list if that helps. I've got the Plan Commission one. I could bring it up on the screen.
Oh, I think I've got that one
Okay.
here too, if you give me just a second.
If anybody has questions about the trees that were added back in, that's the.
I guess I think I lost it now. So why don't we let you share, Craig?
So while, Craig, you're bringing it up, Andy, did you have a comment?
Actually, I just have a question. I don't know if this probably be directed to city staff. Since the bitternut hickory, white pine, sugar maple, honey locust, and American basswood were all in the original tree advisory proposal, I guess my question is, what was the city staff's rationale for removing them? Or why were they not included? I mean, I guess having dealt with honey locusts, I can understand kind of the nature of those, but I guess I'm a little curious about the others.
And Anna, before you get started, would you just state your name and kind
sure.
of position for the public?
Sure,
Thanks.
yes, thank you. So I am Anna Healy. I'm the urban forester and naturalist for the city of Fitchburg. And if you look at, and thank you for your question, and if you look at, I think it's map 4.3 in the comp plan, where future neighborhoods will come from, they're mostly from the western side of Fitchburg and the eastern, kind of middle eastern border of the city. And in those areas, the trees that we have that are long-lived are usually the Quercus genus, shagbark hickory, and also hackberry. We don't have a whole lot of the other trees that were listed, the basswood, the honey locust, and the maples. They may be there, but it's not as probable. If you're looking at those distinct areas and you want to think about trying to keep things as easy as possible for the people doing the work, the list that the staff had recommended being all the oaks, the hickory, and the hackberry, that's probably what's going to be there. There may be some of those other species, but it's not nearly as probable. So that's why we changed the species. If you wanted to go for everything that might be there, then you should go with the whole list. Does that make sense?
What about box elder?
Yeah, exactly. So box elder is our most represented maple in the city. You are 100% right. Eastern Negundo, yes.
But I don't see that on the list.
Well, that's a good question. So box elder, we have a lot of box elder. It's an early successional tree. It does provide us a lot of ecosystem services. However, it's not a great candidate for preservation because it's not long-lived. Our box elder trees live for less than 100 years, and anything, that we, anywhere you go, you're going to find a box elder tree. So if you want a box elder tree, all you have to do is stop mowing and wait, and it'll show up. So it's not something that we thought was really worth putting on the list, if that makes sense.
We just took a box elder down on my property. What is that?
That looks
Diameter
about
20 inches?
22, yeah. Yeah, and that tree was probably 40 or 50 years old.
That was a big tree.
Yeah.
Provided a lot of shade.
Yes, it does. And right, they grow very fast. And
I have another question.
sure.
Once this survey is only intended for the preliminary plat,
Yes.
and it shows the trees that are in the area to be platted,
Yes.
and then those trees are protected going forward?
No, they're not protected going forward. It's a planning tool. So the idea behind the original ordinance was if you go to 6 inches and you keep all the species, you're going to capture everything that might be there that's desirable and potentially worth preserving in the planning process. And the idea is that you can then you can kind of plan better the infrastructure that you're going to build and where the stormwater is and all of those sorts of things, so that moving forward, you can potentially keep some of the more desirable trees on the landscape. One of the biggest questions I always get, and it happens every single development, people move in and then they call me and they're like, where are our trees? I'm like, they're there, you just don't notice them because they're small. Because we do quite a bit of tree planting when developments are new. So the idea is that we have some mature trees on site after the development process.
Are you suggesting that they're going to design the sewer to move around the trees that are in the preliminary plat?
Probably not.
Well, you just said that.
Well, right, well, so I think I said stormwater. So, for example, we're, and the reason I bring up stormwater is we've had a couple of trees come down recently that ended up being in the way of stormwater facilities, and it just begs the question: could we have planned that a little bit better to keep to keep our stormwater infrastructure and the trees? To be honest, trees are our best in terms of stormwater. Our best treatment comes from our trees.
So if I buy a lot in this plat, and there's a 6, 12, or 18-inch breast-high tree in the middle of the site where my home would be best sited, what do I do?
It's up to you.
Do I build around the tree?
I don't think that you would do that.
Can we cut the tree down?
Yeah, you could. Yeah, so the idea is that when we're planning, the idea is to have as much information as possible during the planning process. And so if you've got that information in front of you, you can make better plans and potentially keep some trees in the landscape. If it's in the way of a building, obviously it's not going to stay. And that's been acknowledged from the start.
And if I have a 40-acre plat site with 500-600 trees, that's going to be surveyed for $1,500, $2,500?
It really depends upon the species that end up getting selected into the ordinance. We've had tree surveys here on Lacey Road, both the west end and the east end. And I was trying to come up with the invoice for that, and the staff people have all turned over since then, so I couldn't get my hands on it. But I think for this side of Lacey Road, which is from Fish Hatchery all the way, I think it went all the way to Syene, but I'm not sure. But that was, $2,500 to survey all those trees roughly, and it was just species, and it was everything. It wasn't, I think the DBH was 6 inches. Anything 6 inches and over got surveyed, and it was just species, condition, and whether it could take construction or not. We did the same thing on Lacey Road from Seminole Highway to Fitch-Rona, and that was a little bit more expensive because we had to go in twice, but it was less than that $3,000 mark for it to do, and that was to do everything.
For all those trees?
Yeah, taking them down was a lot more expensive, but just to survey to see what was there, if there was anything that we could save or not. We ended up being able to save 4 larger oak trees in that process, but that was the first start, was figuring out, okay, what's here, what can we possibly work around? And in that project, it turned out to be 4 trees, but it was, but that was the first start, was figuring out what was there.
All right, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
So we have Craig that brought some information, or Mike, do you want to just touch?
Yeah, I was going to say, Craig, do you want to stop sharing? And then I'm going to share my screen. And I thought what might be helpful is I'll just bring up the amended version from the Plan Commission, which I think has those same species identified in it. I thought it might just be helpful as we're kind of working through the mechanics of the original kind of ordinance from staff and then the amended version from Plan Commission. And so give me just a second here. There we go, and I'll just zoom in here a little bit. So this is the amended version from the Plan Commission. And so it's got the species identified and listed that would be included, and then it's got the diameter at the 6 inches there, and you can see the changes that were made.
And this is the motion before us?
This is, yes, there was the original motion on the original, but then there was the amended, yep.
This is what Joe amended Andy's.
Seconded for discussion, yep, yeah.
So that's what we're going to be voting on.
So right now.
One right here.
Yeah, right now it would be this amended version because we've got, we had the original motion that then had an amendment for this version.
Is there any more discussion before we go for a vote?
I do have I do have a question, and maybe because I'm new to this conversation, but where does the 18 inches came from the city staff?
And I'll defer to Anna on that. She's kind of our tree expert here. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Don't worry, that's why I'm here.
And I get the idea of the diameter that is stated here, but besides that, is there any other reasoning?
So, so basically, when we first started working on this, we wanted to capture everything, and that's why we went with the 6 inches, which is if a tree has gotten to 6 inches, it's going to be there. It's happy to be there. It's a tree. That's kind of when a tree is a tree. The next kind of natural break from a forestry perspective really is 18 inches. That's when a tree has timber value. That's when you kind of change the. If you're doing land clearing, it kind of changes the equipment you need to use. You're not going to pick up an 18-inch tree with your hands and throw it through a chipper. You have to, at that point, get a grind and grapple situation. So it changes the economics of land clearing. The other thing is, if you look back at that map, and I would have brought it, but I didn't have the internet yesterday, so it was kind of disruptive. At any rate, if you look back at that comp plan map 4.3, where future neighborhoods are going to be from, which I think you're all familiar with, there aren't very many small trees in that area. Our oak trees particularly have not been regenerating for decades. There aren't a whole lot of 6-inch trees. There aren't a whole lot of 12-inch trees. When we went out and did the visuals, myself and my intern went out to find some visuals to take pictures of. We were hard pressed to find a 12-inch tree in McGaw Park. So I think the idea is that, we want to capture everything, but to be honest, there really aren't a lot of small trees out there, particularly in the areas we're talking about where future developments will come from. And so at 18 inches, most of the trees we're talking about will be about 100 to 115 years old. And that's kind of when our trees, that's kind of one of our youngest age classes. There are younger trees out there. They just aren't very well represented. We don't have a whole lot of them. So if it's 6 inches, if it's 18 inches, we're almost going to get the same information because we don't have a lot of smaller trees for a variety of reasons, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
And I just have one more question. So again, from an economic development hat, not just the tree, will this slow down our developers in the process, or will they be able to get it in quick enough they can get it done to keep projects moving? I know there's a ton of discussion around Lacey Road. You mentioned Lacey Road going west because the bike lanes got into it and everything else. And so I don't know if that piece is what slowed down that project. Maybe it was money, but will this slow down our process?
I would hope not. That's not the idea. Okay. And I can't really speak to Lacey Road other than from my perspective. I mean, part of what happened with Lacey Road is there was a lot of staff turnover, which wasn't helpful. But part of it was, I think we ended up doing the tree piece got added in later. If it had been part of the process from the start, I think it would have been more smooth. Okay. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
I guess maybe kind of a comment and or question. It seems to me that most of the expense is going to be actually going out and doing the surveying of the land.
Yes.
So that it seems in some ways the size is almost immaterial, that if you're paying somebody to come out, why not, if it's a 6-inch tree or an 18-inch tree, you still have to go out and look at all of the trees that are on the 40-acre parcel or what it is. So why wouldn't we just capture everything that's out there?
You bring up an excellent point, because if you're out doing a tree survey, you get a pretty good eyeball of what an 18-inch tree looks like, but you measure a lot of other trees getting to that point. So you bring up an excellent point.
If there is any other discussion, Joe, I just want to confirm you're good. Okay. Any other discussion to be had here? If not, we will be going to a vote.
On the amended.
On the amended tree plan.
So basically, on this amended version of the tree preservation ordinance.
And for those who are in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Yeah, I did. I was in favor.
So carries, I think it was 6-1, right? Or 5-1. Oh, we're missing one. That's right. 5-1. Sorry about that. Randy's absent today.
So motion carries then? Yep.
Yes.
Do we have to?
To amend the motion. Yeah, now we need another motion, right? What?
So I made a motion to approve.
Yep.
Joe made a motion to amend my motion. That's what we just voted on, was to amend the motion. So now we would need a second vote to actually approve the resolution. We're back to the main motion of approving the resolution.
So now we have to vote again.
To approve this again, we're approving this.
Yes.
All right,
Now, this is actually the main motion, amended version.
all right. For those who are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed?
Nay.
5-1 again.
Motion carries.
Motion carries, yep. Are we good to move on, or do we?
We just want to say thanks to everybody for coming out and getting up early and for your input and again, working through some of our technology issues over the last day.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you so much. So we will move to item number 6, housing. It's rent-to-own townhouse pilot project, and I believe we have a presentation. Is that correct? No? Okay. Mike, is that something that you're discussing then?
Yeah, we just wanted to, this is really more of an update for you. And I'm just kind of maneuvering here in my packet. As you know, we've been working on the rent-to-own program, and the administration had asked us to do more due diligence as we identify kind of the potential risks and where we're at right now is we had put out, working with our consultants, Mike and Steve from H&A Advisors, we had put together a legal services RFP, and we received one response from Quarles, and that's in your packet there. So we just wanted to share with you, this is going through the pre-approval process through our finance and administration department there, and we're hoping that we'll have that approval within the next week or so, and then we would be working with Quarles to continue to identify risks. Mike and Steve from H&A have already identified a list of them that were included in the original request for proposals that we had. We had two different RFPs, and one was for programmatic kind of services, and then the other one was for real estate services. So we'll be contracting with Quarles to do this work for us, and then hopefully once that information is brought back, and again, they'll do risk identification and then mitigation and how we can manage that for both city and CETA. And then hopefully once we've gathered that information, we will take it back to council to provide them an update to be at kind of a decision point. Do we continue to move forward with the next phases towards a pilot project, which would be a 10-unit potential townhome rent-to-own workforce housing project there. So it's really just for information purposes, but I don't know if anybody has any questions, and I can flash up on my screen here again. Just a second. Just going to get to the right document here. Okay, there we go. These were some of the risk factors that were identified with staff working with H&A Advisors that was included. So we've got some of the management operational risks and programmatic risks, building structure risk, market risk, and then project performance risk. So these would be some of the things that, and then political risk as well, that Quarles will be looking at as part of the legal services work that we'll be contracting with them. And then we're also working with Mike and Steve to do an update of the program as well. As we all know, economic and finance conditions are a lot different than when we first started looking at the program. They've updated the model at least once, if not twice before, but they're going to do another update as we continue to work with Quarles. So that way we've got kind of current economic and finance conditions factored in as they're looking at the risk factors here.
Where would these, is it 10 or 12?
Originally, we were talking about kind of doing a 10-unit townhome project.
Where would that be located?
We've got a couple of areas in mind. We don't have a specific site yet, but it could be up in the North Fish Hatchery Road areas. We're working with some of the developers. It could be over in Terra Vesa as another option. It could be on Rimrock Road potentially. So we've just identified a couple of general areas where there's land, and some development entities, partners have said they're kind of intrigued by the program and would be willing to consider working with us or partnering with us. So no specific site yet. That would come next, Dan, if we get kind of the green light from the council after we do the risk identification and mitigation, and take that back to them. If they say, yes, we want you to continue to proceed, that would be kind of some of the next elements working towards a pilot project.
So in this investigation, you've got 10 units, 300,000, it'd be $3 million ballpark.
Yep.
Where's the $3 million coming from?
That, remember, we've been capitalizing a housing for TID, or TID for Housing Fund, with the closures of TIDs. I got to remember which numbers now, 4, 6, and we just are adding another 600,000 from the former town TID. So we've got about close to $8 million in the bank right now, and we've already kind of segregated $3 million specifically for the rent-to-own program. Until we kind of figure out, are we proceeding with a pilot project or are we going in a different track there? So we do have that money in the bank right now as we do more program formulation. And it's going a little off topic, but some of the other bucket areas that we've been looking at, the rent-to-own townhome program is one housing program that we've been looking at. The other one that we're going to update you on is coming up next, the Sustain, Gain, and Elevate Energy. And that's focused more on energy efficiency upgrades to our existing kind of older multifamily housing stock. And then we've also kind of incorporated a public safety element to that. If a building owner was willing to kind of work with us on incorporating a fire sprinkler system. So that would be another tracker program with some of that $8 million fund that we have available. And then the third one that we're looking at, we've got a scope of services with Ellers, and we're looking at a potential program to incorporate market rate units, or affordable units within market rate buildings. And we got this idea from what John Fladd did in Shorewood Hills in both the Boulevard building and the Lodge buildings out there. And what we're evaluating with Ellers is possibly 10% of the units at 60% of median income. And we're looking at it kind of from two funding sources. One would be, would we do it through existing active TID districts? So it would be part of the project plan and one of the project costs within an existing TID district. And or would we also look to that bucket of $8 million for that type of program too? So we've got a scope of services from Ellers. Joyce and I have already had one meeting with them, and they're going to be helping us kind of define those program parameters, and we'll be reporting back on that as we make more progress with them. So those are 3 housing programs that we have going kind of simultaneously right now, and we'll be coming back to not only the Housing Advisory Committee, but this committee when we want to make some kind of final allocation decisions, even on the energy efficiency track that we're discussing.
Now, I believe that a similar project was conducted out in Middleton.
The affordable within market?
Yes.
Okay.
And that was very specific that I understood was that the quality and the finishes in each of the units was the same. You couldn't tell the difference. There wasn't an upgrade or a downgrade depending on if you were in a subsidized unit.
Right.
I think that's very important if you're going to try to integrate 10%.
Yes. And one potential pilot project, if we are successful in putting program parameters together, one development that might be interested in being our first project for that program is the Avalon project that in venture capital, Mike and Ned are doing on Index Road. It's 170 market rate building right now. The foundation's already in the ground. We're adding that area as part of our TID 10 amendment. And if we are successful with approval through council and the Joint Review Board with that, we just need to let them know kind of by September or October if we've got a program in place, and then they would maybe be willing to shift to incorporating 10%. But just as you pointed out, Dan, the units would be of consistent quality there. There wouldn't be any differentiation with the units there. And I will acknowledge Mike Harrigan is actually here and available via Zoom. So if there's any questions from him, from our consultant partnership, H&A, on any of the risks that are identified there or anything else related to the program, Mike's up early and available to answer any questions. Like I said, this was really just an update that we're working it through the pre-approval, and we get that in the next week or two, and then we have our partners at Quarles get started on the legal due diligence for us. Any questions?
No questions, so we will move on to item number 6B, Sustain, Gain, and Elevate Energy Update. And that's Joyce.
Joyce is going to take this one.
This is just another update as well. Mike mentioned about the Sustain, Gain, and Elevate multifamily energy efficiency updates. We received a call from Sustain, Gain asking if we would be interested in providing a letter of support for a grant opportunity through the U.S. Department of Energy. It's a building upgrades grant. I believe the award would be around $200,000. So we just wanted to give you a heads up that we're going to pursue that that grant with Sustain Gain. We're looking for maybe some partners from the community. I believe that they reached out to the Boys and Girls Club to see if there was an opportunity to work with the Mackenzie Workforce Development Center on this program. So we're pretty excited. This will be another pot of money that we can either add more units to what we want to do and also bring that public safety element into the updates. So we shared with you the letter of support that Julia put together. Is there any questions?
And the council authorized that letter at the meeting on Tuesday night for support of this grant that they'll be submitting.
And the dollars would go directly to Sustain Gain, not the city. We would be the beneficiary.
And hopefully if they're successful with this, again, going down those 3 tracks of housing programs there, we were already talking to Sustain Gain and Elevate about an energy efficiency program and allocating some of those dollars out of our TID for Housing Fund. So this, hopefully if they're successful, will provide additional resources to work with more property owners or do more units as part of that. So we're trying to leverage our resources and then kind of add to and supplement that with other funding sources that might be available. So we were very pleased when Sustain Gain and Elevate approached us on this.
Any comments or questions on that? All right, we will move on to item number 7, hotel room tax report considerations, the 40th anniversary in Boys and Girls Club events request.
And the 40th anniversary is kind of a courtesy. I know some years ago you guys gave me kind of the, authorization that I can make some expenditures under, is it $1,000, Joyce, or $2,500 if it's in the budget and everything. But we need to replenish our 40th anniversary kind of swag that we have available. We're doing some monthly drawings here for people. They register at the front desk, so we need to get some more shirts and hats and things like that. So I'm hopefully going to order a few more things from our store that the chamber set up for us with these items. And then I'm hoping that Zazzle has a really good 50% off sale maybe coming up, because I'd like to get some pickleball paddles that would be Fitchburg designed, but I don't want to pay full price for them, so I'm kind of keeping an eye on those. So, but hopefully it would be maybe not to exceed another $1,000 with some of the merchandise that we would get. So I just wanted to kind of give you a heads up on that. If anybody has concerns about that, please speak up or let me know. But people have appreciated the swag that we've handed out. Joyce even called one of our longtime Fitchburg residents. He had won a hat from the drawing that we had at the front desk and was pleasantly surprised to have that. So it's helping to get the word out and celebrate our 40th anniversary for that one.
So, Mike, just a question. The agenda says something about a Boys and Girls Club event.
Well, that's the next one, yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead, sorry.
There's two, yeah, okay. Then I think I had mentioned at the last meeting, the Boys and Girls Club has multiple events coming up on Saturday, July 15th. There's the Move and Groove ride. Do I have the name right there, Mark and Andy? Yeah. They're a big fundraiser and bicycle ride that they have. That's been a great event here from McKee Farms Park. And the other event that night is the Madison area, the McKenzie Regional Workforce Center that we toured at an earlier CETA meeting. And they're having a white party as part of that event. There's a kickoff of that. I think it starts at 4 to 6, and then it continues on from like 6 to 10 or 6 to midnight there. So they're selling tickets, and that's why I wanted to do a little bit more research. I'd like to have some CETA representation there. I think I'm going to be out of town at a family event up in Wausau that weekend, so I just wanted to offer, if anybody's inclined, through our CETA dollars, I'd go for 2 or 3 tickets. The tickets are $100 each there for it, so I just wanted to kind of offer if a member or two would like to go and kind of just represent CETA at that event, and is the group okay with that? Just authorizing some dollars for me to buy, let's say, 3 tickets if there is interest.
Mike, just a point of clarification. I'm on the Move and Groove Bike Planning Committee. We're getting free tickets to the event, so I don't need.
Okay.
I know we're going to the ribbon cutting, which is 4 to 6.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we're staying for the evening event. We're supposed to go out of town, but I will be there for the ribbon cutting and participating in the event during the day.
Okay. And I think you bring up a good point that probably the CETA representation is more that 4 to 6.
But I'll
it's
be
not
there.
that you have to stay all night for the party unless you want to. You're welcome to. And I know Mayor Julia will be there, as part of the ribbon cutting ceremony and everything. Do you have anything, Andy? No.
I already have tickets, so.
Okay, good. Well, then we'll have some CETA representatives there. But if anybody else would like to go, is CETA okay if we covered some additional representation?
Do you want some formal approval for your $1,000 and 3 tickets?
That would be great, yes.
I move that we do that.
Everyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. And again, reach out to me on the tickets if you're interested, okay? Looks like a fun party. In fact, if I end up being in town, I'll definitely be there for part of it. And we'll just give you a couple of updates as we've reported in the last couple of meetings. We've got 3 tax increment districts that are working their way through now the formal process. So that's for a second amendment to TID number 10 in Fish Hatchery Road. TID number 16, proposed TID number 16, which would be in the Southdale neighborhood. And then TID number 17, which is Anton and Arrowhead on both sides of the Verona Road corridor along McKee Road there. So those will all have a public hearing at the Plan Commission on Tuesday, July 18th, and then they will wind their way to the council on August 8th, and then there will be a joint review board meeting to be determined later in August or early September for consideration of each of those tax increment district. So we just wanted to give you an update on that we're now kind of into the formal process. Also on July 18th, before the Plan Commission meeting that night, is the organizational meeting for the Joint Review Board. That really kind of kicks off that formal process. So we just want to make you aware of that. And then a couple of upcoming events that we'd encourage you to participate in. If you're available this evening, starting at 3 o'clock, Joyce and I will be down at the Fitchburg Farmers Market, and we've got our chamber partners have some Fitchburg retro tote bags in honor of our 40th anniversary celebration. They're going to be great for when you go and buy your sweet corn later this season here. So feel free to stop down there and get one of the tote bags that we'll be giving away. And then coming up next week, Wednesday, we've got our first commercial business that is having a ribbon cutting in the Terravessa neighborhood on the east side. So we've got the Flight Wine and Bourbon Bar opening on July 5th. So please join us for that. And I think if you don't already have it on your calendars, Joyce will send out the event details to you. So you've got that one. Then the next one coming up is on Saturday, July 8th, and that's our Fitchburg Festival of Speed. And in conjunction with that, with the support of CETA, is our Fitchburg Community Fireworks that evening. So please definitely come out and bring your family and friends to join us for that event. And even if you don't come out all day for the bike criterion, if you come out for the end of it, it's pretty exciting at the end as they're getting to the final stages of it. But then there's multiple bands, the Lower Fifth at 2 p.m., Frank and the Names at 4 p.m., and Super Tuesday at 6 p.m., and then followed by the fireworks at 9 p.m., and food and beverage out there. So we're getting some good traction on social media through our chamber partners and also through the city information. I think we were like 3,500 or 4,000 hits on social media, so hopefully we're generating good interest. Joyce has made extra efforts to reach out to not only neighborhood associations in Fitchburg to get the word out to people, but also to a lot of the multifamily apartment buildings in Fitchburg to reach those residents and everything to encourage them to join us for that. So we're hoping we get not only good weather, but a really good crowd too. So please join us for that. Then on Thursday, July 13th, Joyce and I had a sneak preview last week of the Courtyard Memory Care. This is the new memory care and assisted living complex that's on lots 53 and 54 on the west side of McKee Farms Park. So they're going to be having their grand opening and ribbon cutting for the memory care building on Thursday, July 13th, 3 to 6, with the ribbon cutting at 4 p.m. So please join us for that. Again, that's one of the areas that we're focused on as far as that continuum of senior housing in Fitchburg and bringing much needed inventory across the spectrum of everything from independent to affordable independent to assisted living memory care. And another element that we need that we've been talking to some developers about is even ratcheting up to kind of skilled nursing care in one of those facilities. So that's an important housing initiative. So it's a beautiful facility, and the thought and the design and the quality is a real positive for the community. And then on Tuesday night of this week at the council meeting, there was the hearing on the CIP, 2024 CIP, and then amendments are due by council members on Wednesday, July 5th for it. So if you want to follow that process. One item in there from more of a tourism perspective is there's a proposal to look to expand the pickleball courts at McGaw Park to put in another 4 courts, which is the level that we've heard from Destination Madison and the Madison Area Sports Commission, where we really need to be at to not only host some local tournaments, but maybe even to bump it up to a regional tournament over there. So we're hoping that that makes its way through the CIP process and continues to get support. And then one other thing on the housing front, we've been chatting with the Housing Advisory Committee about maybe doing some neighborhood walks in some of the H&I neighborhoods where we're focused especially on that kind of energy efficiency and building upgrades of that kind of older multifamily housing stock. So just wanted to mention it to this group that once we make some decisions on the dates and the neighborhoods that we're going to, I think we'll also maybe extend an invitation to this group that if you want to join us to go on that, because ultimately Housing Advisory Committee provides recommendations to CETA, Plan Commission, and Council. So if you want to join us and kind of do a lay of the land tour and give us your observations and perspectives, we'll extend an invitation to you to be part of those. Am I missing anything, Joyce? Yes, I've at the new memory care facility. I've got the one with the high ceilings, and it's next to the spa.
And I picked one way at the opposite end of him, so we're good.
Perfect. Item number 9 is announcements then? Any announcements?
Just the next meeting on July 27th.
Perfect. And last item is adjournment. Anyone motion?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Bye.
Thanks, everybody.